The McDonald's snack wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch snack wrap. Spicy snack wrap. You broke the internet for a snack. Snack wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
This message is sponsored by Greenlight. With school out, summer is the perfect time to teach our kids real-world money skills they'll use forever. Greenlight is a debit card and the #1 family finance and safety app used by millions of families, helping kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely. Parents can send their kids money and track their spending and saving, while kids build money confidence and skills in fun ways. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/Spotify. That's greenlight.com/Spotify.
Have you ever had someone get mad at you for sharing a piece of gossip? Has it ever gotten back to you that it came from you?
I've had my mom get mad at me for sharing a piece of
Yes.
gossip.
Yeah, there it is.
My parents also are always telling me, they're like, Rachel can't hold water. Like, don't tell her anything. And they tell me everything anyway.
Yeah, right. Because they're gossip. See, this is
exactly.
This is
they want to hear what I have to say about it.
Welcome to How To. I'm Carvel Wallace. You know, there's this one piece of incredibly juicy Hollywood gossip that I've held on to for years, maybe even a decade. I'm talking super juicy. It involves mega A-list celebrities, illicit sexual encounters, a cult or two, secret agents. It's like pure drama, scalding hot tea. And I love that piece of gossip. It's like having money in the bank. It's like a verbal 401k. It's like a delicious frozen homemade lasagna that I can heat up for comfort when the weather is cold and I'm too tired to cook. But the thing is, I've never shared it publicly. I've never written about it or even tweeted about it, even when I had a somewhat biggish following on Twitter. In fact, I've maybe told like 10 people about this in total. That's because to me, it's not just a juicy story to be traded for clout. It's a way of connecting with someone, of inviting you into my circle of trust, of being gagged by the same drama, of forming a bond. And if you're listening to this and you know which Hollywood story I'm talking about, then it's because I've told you. And if I've told you, it's probably because I love you. And see, that's the thing about gossip. It gets a bad rap, but it can be about so much more than just insulting people behind their backs. It can be about sharing important information, about building community, about sharing love, or even just enjoying the magic and power of a good story. So on this, the final episode, for now, of our anti-hero miniseries, we're going to explore how gossip, despite that reputation, can actually be a force for good. We're going to talk about the mechanics of telling a juicy story and some of the best practices for gossiping the right way. And to help me, I'm bringing in a beloved former Slatester whose job now literally revolves around gossip.
I'm Rachel Hampton. I am the host of Normal Gossip, which is a show about gossip. We get gossip submitted to us by our listeners and we anonymize it, and then I tell it to a guest. Today, our friend of a friend is named Drew, and Drew is in his mid-30s. He's British, and he is setting out on his annual vacation. Mm-hmm. Sam, do you know the kind of guy who's like most defining characteristic is that they love to travel?
Yeah. Yeah. And you never know how they...
It's funny now because gossip to me is now work. So whenever I think of gossip, I'm always kind of thinking of, oh, the way someone told me this could be a really interesting way to tell this to a guest. Or I've turned into a real like magpie for details where if someone says something in a really funny way, I'm like, oh, I'm stealing that and putting it in a story.
I want to hear you talk a little bit about first how we're defining gossip. Like, what is gossip to you? And how has that definition changed for you in the time that you've been like thinking about it more attentively and maybe even professionally?
I've been thinking about this question a lot because the former host of Normal Gossip, Kelsey McKinney, just wrote a big book about gossip called You Didn't Hear This From Me. It's really great. I actually didn't know what the Merriam-Webster definition of gossip was until the past year. But it is apparently the act of talking about a third party without the third party being present. If we're taking that as gossip, then me talking about Kelsey's book without her being here is gossip. And so I think I've kind of moved closer to that definition because previously I thought of gossip as having a sort of special kind of inflection, which I think is true. But I think that if you think about gossip as a format more than it is really a specific object, then it becomes, I think, much closer to the truth of what gossip is. So I think gossip is not inherently morally good or morally bad. I think it's actually pretty morally neutral because it's just the dissemination of information to people without that third party present. And you can use it for purposes of bonding with people. You can use it for purposes of sharing information. You can use it for purposes of talking shit about people. You can use it for purposes of getting shit off your chest. You can use it for literally anything you want. So now I think of gossip as a sort of just like neutral category, a sort of way of talking.
So then that makes me wonder, the way gossip is introduced to me growing up is that it's something that women do that they're not supposed to do. It's the thing that makes women like obnoxious and it's bad. It's like it's their vice. It's like the women's vice is gossip. And so I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how that definition gets created and what that actually means, that we not only think of it as something that is like inherent to women, but something that is also inherently bad. You said it doesn't have a moral value, but when the notion was taught to me, it was given definitely a morality was implied.
I think that people in power hate the idea of gossip. I think that's kind of just something that's across the board. And so I think that any kind of information sharing between people that isn't ordained or encouraged by people with power.
Or even mediated by people with power.
Exactly. So I think that is one of the reasons why gossip, I feel like most things that are fun
yes,
and that are bad for you are ascribed as women's vices very often. Right. And so I also think that the ways that men talk to each other about other people just isn't described as gossip. If you think about it, sports trading rumors are all gossip. The entire ecosystem around sports, around politics, is often told in the language of gossip, but it's never described as such, or people would never describe themselves as gossiping. When I think of people, men in Brooklyn who love the horse race of politics and are constantly talking about these people on Twitter or these people, these thinkers that they follow, that to me is gossip. But they would say that they're politicking.
That's right. Well, it's interesting. I had a friend a couple of years ago who was kind of a super reality fan. And then one day she decided to get into football. And so she was always calling me up and asking me, well, what's the deal with this player? What's that? And I would start explaining stuff. And then she would be like, so is this just reality TV for guys? And I'm like, yeah, it is. It's just Real Housewives of like, the NFC West basically is what this is.
It definitely is. I mean, that's what's gotten me into sports. I want to know who's beefing with who. I want to know who likes who. I want to know, are they fighting each other? Like, I want to know all the trading stuff. I love the personality part of it. And I think that's the gossip part of sports.
So why does gossip feel good? Because I mean, I love gossiping, and I love having a little juicy piece of information about a person that someone else doesn't know, and I'm just like, let me spill the tea right now. Like, why does that feel so good to both hear and to share?
I think it's so multifaceted. When I hear a good piece of gossip, my first thought is who I'm going to tell it to next. And so I think part of it is just the joy of being like, I can't wait to see how this person in my life reacts to this. Like, I think when you hear a juicy piece of gossip, you very often have a specific person in mind that you want to tell the story to. Sometimes it is a piece of gossip where you're like, everyone in the world needs to know. And that has its own joy because it just feels so groundbreaking that you're going to get a reaction out of truly anyone you tell the story to. It's a communal experience. It's the joy of being able to talk about something that doesn't really have anything to do with you. So you don't have to really think about your own emotional landscape or your own problems. And you can pick over it as much as you want. But I also think the things that fascinate us about gossip very often have things to say about who we are as people and what our preoccupations are. So everyone's going to tell a piece of gossip differently. It's kind of like the game of telephone or like the old newspaper thing where if you send 10 people to the same event, you're going to get 10 different stories, and they're all technically true, but they're different stories. And so I think knowing and finding out the details that stand out to people just gives you a lot of information about the person that you're talking to, or about their personality, or about what their concerns are. So it's a very specific experience.
Another reason gossip feels so good is because it's a way of feeling seen. Like when someone comes up to you and tells you, oh, I heard this thing and I have to tell you, you feel cherished and like a part of an inner circle. It may sound odd, but it's a little like a gift. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about using gossip to build your community and to protect yourself and others. And later on in the show, we're going to get into actual advice to become better at gossiping. Stay with us.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. If you're running a business right now, you already know it's hard. Tight budgets, hiring freezes, and economic uncertainty is just the beginning. Good news, Upwork is helping small businesses do more with less. Upwork is the hiring platform designed for the modern playbook where you can find, hire, and pay expert freelancers who can deliver results from day one. It's perfect for businesses on tight budgets, fast timelines, and zero room for error. Never tried Upwork? Well, now is the perfect time because they are giving How To listeners a $200 credit after spending $1,000 in the first 30 days. That's $200 you can put toward your next freelancer, whether it's design help, AI automation, admin support, marketing, or whatever your business needs. Visit upwork.com/save right now for this great offer. That is upwork.com/save to get a $200 credit to put towards your next freelancer to help grow your business. That's upwork.com/SAVE. Upwork.com/save. Don't wait. This offer is only valid June 24th through August 5th, 2025.
We're back with Rachel Hampton, host of the hit podcast Normal Gossip. As the power of social media has hopefully begun to wane, there is sort of a collective recognition that it's not as social as we might have thought it was. It might even be a little antisocial. And even celebrity gossip, which was always a popular standby, feels a little bit different now.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why gossiping or receiving gossip online just doesn't feel as good as it does when you get it from someone that you trust. I think so much of the joy of gossip is being able to trust the person who's telling it to you, or at least kind of knowing their positionality. I think when you hear a piece of gossip that's just aggregated together, like I'm thinking about Dumois or
that's the example I was just thinking of too.
Yeah, where I don't know that person. I don't really know what their values are. I don't really know why they're doing this. I don't know what they're choosing to tell me and what they're choosing to leave behind. Even though they're theoretically saying they're sharing everything that they get, there's no way they are. And so not knowing the property of the filter is I think what tends to make gossip feel more malicious, because then it kind of feels like, why are you sharing this information and for what purposes is this information being shared?
Right. In other words, there's no purpose to it other than just marketing or leveraging secret information for your own clout.
Exactly. Yeah.
As opposed to what we might experience with friends. And this is kind of what when I get to. I really like that you said that it has to do with like someone you trust, right? And I think a lot about, when we are told a story by someone that we trust, that's a gossip story, quote unquote, part of what we love is that we love the fact that we can trust their critical eye. Like, they're telling you this story because it confirms that there's a certain amount of bullshit that they can see through, that you can see through, that you now know we're on the same page. If you could, I'm making the gesture of I see you with my eyes.
Yeah.
Like that feeling of, that's part of what the power of it is. And so the kinds of things that people might zero in on when they tell a story, whether it's like the location, the clothing, or just like the certain attitude or a certain hypocrisy, that kind of stuff, it feels like you're saying that's part of how we build trust with one another. Like, I know you see it and I see it.
Yeah, you learn to trust the way other people are seeing based on what they're telling you. So I know with a certain friend, my best friend, I'm going to tell her what everyone's wearing. I'm going to tell her the occupations of the people that I'm talking about. I'm going to tell her the drinks that people ordered. But I know with another friend that they're just going to care about the exact way someone phrased something. You learn to kind of see the way other people are seeing, and you also learn to see yourself through their eyes. I think that gossip kind of functions as a way for us to look at how other people live and to kind of decide for ourselves how we feel about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. What was your relationship with gossip like before it kind of became professionalized? Like, how did it function in your actual life growing up?
I think growing up, especially in middle and high school, I was usually one of the only Black people in the environment that I was in. Even if it was a diverse environment, I may be one of 2 Black people. And so I think I always had this sense that has persisted into my work life, because we work in an industry that is primarily staffed by white people. I've always had this feeling that people are communicating on a frequency that I don't quite understand. And I have this very deep desire to understand what that frequency is. Because of that, I was always kind of trying to find as much information as possible. And I feel the same way about the people in my life or the people that I interact with, where I'm like, I want to know how they act in this situation, or I want to know if the way that they're reacting is only the way they're reacting to me. And one of the only ways to find that out is through gossiping, is to be like, what's your vibe with this person like? Or have you noticed this? Or am I the only one? Is this just me? And so I think before I started doing this show, I didn't even necessarily think of that as gossip. And now I think I realize that my primary communication mode is just gossiping. Like, I'm kind of always just wanting to understand what people are doing and why they're doing it and where it's happening. So I think I've just become much more aware of the fact that I'm kind of always looking for secrets.
That makes me think about the ways in which we use gossip to protect each other from harmful people, to basically crack the stranglehold that power has on people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, I think we often hear the phrase that history is written by the victor. I think that the control of information is one of the hallmarks of power. And so I think that any effort to kind of dispel that or fight against that or exist outside of that is usually a form of protection used by marginalized communities. I mean, the Underground Railroad, the way that was disseminated is on some form gossip. I learned of this concept called hush harbors, which is basically spaces where only Black people would talk to each other. But I learned this in the context of digital hush harbors, where there were comment sections on specific blogs where Black people knew they could hang out and talk to each other and not have the eye of white society on them. And that is a form of gossip as well, because very often we're talking about white people in those spaces or our experiences in white society. One of the trials of being marginalized in a society is that we have to know more about our oppressors than our oppressors have to know about us. And that's just to keep us safe. We have to know what towns we can drive through at night. We have to know what gas stations are safe to go into. We have to know what teachers are good for our kids to be with. We have to know what administrators are actually going to be able to hear out our complaints. We have to know what bosses will actually care about our futures. And so all of that is kind of a form of gossip. And I think the idea of information being passed along that isn't being, as you said, mediated by the white gaze in terms of people of color or the male gaze in terms of women could all kind of be thought of as gossip in a way. And all of that is usually an attempt to protect ourselves.
Have you ever had a time that you can think of where information shared about a workplace, a coworker, whatever it is, someone who may have an impact in your life, where information shared with you about them by another party has been helpful or clarifying or protective to you?
Definitely. I mean, I entered media professionally in 2017, which was the year of the Shitty Media Men list.
For those of you who didn't spend all day on media Twitter in 2017, the Shitty Men in Media list was a crowdsourced Google spreadsheet that collected allegations and rumors about sexual misconduct by about 70 men in the media industry, particularly in New York City. It was effectively organized gossip about sexual harassment that went viral in the industry and impacted the lives of a lot of people. It also raised questions and even a lawsuit or two about rumors and the fairness of talking publicly about someone behind their back.
The founder of the Shitty Media Men list was working at the publication that I was working at when she started it. I was at the New Republic at the time. So we had one of the people on that list was our publisher. Right. And so I remember having this feeling of discomfort around this man, but I was also the only Black person in my office. So a feeling of discomfort is kind of just the regular when that is true for you. So I couldn't tell if what I was feeling was just like me and would be penalized if I brought it up, or if it was something that everyone was kind of speaking to. And one of the critics there did a really good job of letting we were all fellows at that time, so we were only there for a year, but of letting the fellows know, we're all women, that like, this guy has had issues with a lot of people. This is his previous work history. Like, this is what I've heard about him. And that was really helpful because like we were fact checkers. So like we worked late at night. Sometimes we were the only people in the building besides him. There were times where like I wouldn't go down on the elevator unless my friend was with me. So that was one time that I can like definitely think of where gossip changed the way that I acted for the better.
We did an episode before this where we talked about being a hater, like being an ethical hater, like the idea of what it means to like hate on people from a nuanced perspective, to borrow the language of the meme, and how that differentiates from being like a Karen or being someone who goes around like harming people. And what we talked about was that it had to do with power, right?
Yeah.
We hate upwards. That's like a form of community care and protection, and maybe even an attempt to dismantle like the stranglehold that certain sort of oppressive forces have over our lives. And then if we hate downward or even sideways, it's a little bit like, come on, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, you know, so I guess I have that similar question with gossip, which is like, are there ways to use gossip that are harmful? And what is the differentiation between those two things, gossip for good and gossip for harm, in your mind?
The question that comes to mind for me when discerning that is, what is the reason this gossip is being shared? Is it being shared to ostracize someone? Or is it being shared to warn someone away from someone? I think also the thing about gossip that I think is really important to remember is it's kind of a trust but verify situation. And so I think even if you receive gossip from someone that you really trust, I think there's always usually something in your head that's going along the lines of, this backs up something I've already seen. So if I ever hear a piece of gossip that kind of feels like it's coming out of nowhere, the question in my head is always is this true? How much of this is true? How much of this should I trust? And I think that is especially true of gossip you find online. I think that is to always be taken with a grain of salt.
Because as you pointed out, it's disconnected from its like intention or source. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I would say that the easiest way to discern the intent of the gossip being shared isn't even in the gossip. It's in the person who's sharing it. It's being able to confirm the trustworthiness of the kind of conduit of gossip.
Do you ever wonder if you've been on the receiving end negatively of gossip?
Oh, yes. I've always wondered how I'm being perceived. I haven't really had a lot of people tell me anything that's not positive, which makes it hard for me to believe it because I'm just like,
yeah,
I think I'm a pretty good person, but I don't think that people don't not like me.
Right. Well, it's interesting because the thing I was thinking about was, there's been various times in my career where I've had to sort of be like, speak a certain truth to a person in power. Just be like, I don't think we should do this. This is kind of fucked up. This strikes me as low-key racist. Actually, I think you're on some bullshit. And it's sort of like resolved itself however it did. Maybe we didn't do the thing. Maybe we just sort of came to a detente or whatever. But it's always made me wonder, people get a reputation if they stand up to power over time where it's like people start telling other people, well, he was good, but he was difficult to work with. He gave me a lot of challenges. He didn't really want to take my advice. This kind of, he was insubordinate is a big one, that I hear a lot. And so it made me think about the way gossip can be used also by people in power to like preserve, but it also becomes a way of reifying networks.
I feel a lot of, I think, complicated emotions about it because I really, really resonate with what you're saying about being the person in the room who is like often charged with having to speak back to power. I think one of the very common sensations of being the only one in a room is the feeling of your reality not matching up with the reality of the other people that you're talking with. And there is a moment or many moments where you're like, am I crazy? Are they crazy? Is just the situation crazy? And having to locate your own sense of stability within that framework is very, very hard. And so I have often wondered how the people that I'm having to correct or criticize actually feel about me, because I'm sure you've had the same sensation of they're so nice to your face. They will never say anything but kind things to your face. In fact, they often compliment you on having the bravery to speak up. But underneath it, I think this is the frequency thing I said earlier. There's this feeling of you're saying one thing, but the important thing I need to take away from this has nothing to do with what you're saying. It's this whole other frequency you're communicating on. And I have a feeling that other people are tapping into that frequency, but I don't quite have the whiteness to hear what's happening here. So I'm having to like go all these different routes to like get this 360 view of what's happening here, because I don't have the mental parts necessary of being born in a white body to understand what you actually are saying, because you'll never be honest with me.
Which brings us back to using gossip as a method of protection. If gossip at its core is information sharing, then knowing the tenor of other people's experiences with someone, or knowing if what you're experiencing is a pattern, can be extremely valuable, and it can lead to tangible benefits like personal safety or fair pay. When we come back from the break, Rachel will show you how to tap into those valuable whisper networks and other advice for being a better gossip. Stay with us.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
With the Venmo debit card, you can Venmo everything. Your favorite band's merch? You can Venmo this. Or their next show? You can Venmo that. Visit venmo.me/debit to learn more. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. Card may be used everywhere MasterCard is accepted. Venmo purchase restrictions apply.
The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. From improving emergency response times to protecting against cyber attacks, local, state, and federal governments are innovating with Google AI. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American innovation.
Do you hate listening to the show with ads? Well, if you do, then good news, because you can skip the ads now by signing up for Slate Plus. And it's not just for our show. It's for every show on the Slate network, including, in case you missed it, Slate's podcast about internet culture, which Rachel co-founded and hosted for years before passing to our current hosts, Candace Lim and Kate Lindsay. And the best part, you're supporting our show while receiving bonus content multiple times a month. If you aren't already a Slate Plus member, you can subscribe right now on Apple Podcasts by clicking Try Free at the top of the How To show page, or you can visit slate.com/How To Plus to get access wherever you listen. Welcome back to How To. I'm Carvel Wallace. So maybe if you're listening to this conversation with Rachel Hampton and you're thinking to yourself, I've never done this. I was raised to think gossip is bad, but now I kind of want to get into it. If that's you, here's some advice from Rachel Hampton.
First, I would scan your own life and memories for good gossip. I think the easiest way to get people to share gossip with you is to share your own gossip, is to make yourself vulnerable in that way. So I would actually start with being like, okay, everyone has a party story they want to tell. I would scrap that one because everyone's heard that one, but like choose something else, an experience that you're like, damn, that's crazy that happened. And I would immediately start telling people that, of just like, hey, I have a piece of gossip I want to share with you. Can I tell you about this? And most people will say, yes, please.
I've never in my life heard a person say no to that question. Never.
And if they say no, you've learned a lot about them. Like you're coming out of this as a learning experience and you've learned a lot.
Right.
So I would start with yourself if you want to get into being a better gossip. I would think about what things really stand out to you and why. I would think about what kind of people or genres of people are just fascinating to you. Like, I am just, anytime rich people do anything, it's one of my least, it's one of my least, like, class conscious traits, but I love hearing about rich people. Like, I love hearing about their lifestyles. I love hearing about the way they communicate because it's a foreign language to me. I'm like, this will never.
You're like, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? Yeah.
Allegedly, we inhabit the same world, but we don't at all. And I want to know what yours is. So I know a lot about myself because I know that's something that I'm interested in. I'm very interested in worlds that like I can like see into, but like I can't really touch. Whereas some people only really want to know about the world that they can touch, where they're like, I'm interested in like my coffee shop barista. Like I want to know what she's up to. So I think just looking at the world is such a simple piece of advice, but just being in the world and like looking at the world and noticing what you notice is one of the first steps to being like a really good gossip.
Let's talk a little bit about the idea of like entering into a new space, let's say a new job, or even, some people we have some teenage listeners who are coming into a new school. How do you find out information via the whisper networks that would be helpful to you? How do you seek people out? How do you seek out that knowledge?
I think it becomes another question of observation. I think seeing who the people around you are who are kind of talking with everyone, like who's kind of friendly with everyone, and they'll probably be friendly with you. Or looking at the people who are kind of on the outskirts and I wouldn't immediately suggest friending them because I would try and figure out why they're on the outskirts first, whether it's just because maybe they've had a negative experience and they just don't, or maybe they're just a loner, or maybe they are a crazy person. All of that is important information.
Right.
So I would kind of keep an eye on the people around you and their relationships to the other people and kind of see like where you can fit in.
You've spent a lot of time on Normal Gossip and thinking about stories and the way stories go. What have you learned about the mechanics of a good story?
I feel like so much of gossip is not necessarily about the facts of the story. In fact, I think it's rarely ever about the facts of the story. I think it's very often about the person that you're telling it to and the details that you choose to highlight for them. No one ever really wants to hear gossip without your own point of view. Like, they want to hear if you think something is a red flag or a green flag. They don't want to hear you say it neutrally. I think I've honestly gained a lot more respect for just like novelists and screenwriters who manage to like tightly plot something and have a satisfying narrative conclusion. The conclusion is the real thing I respect the most, because what I've learned is that when people tell stories to you, it just ends like very abruptly. Like, there's no cute little wrap-up scene. There's no sense that the story is about to end. You're just like, oh, okay, we're done now. Interesting. And that's because most people's lives are not movies. They just keep continuing. There's no like wrap-up scene in real life, but writing the episodes, I'm often just like, we're going to have to massage that ending to make it more clear as we're telling it. So I think that's what I've learned the most, is just like, all stories need an end. Start thinking about that pretty early.
I know I have certain pieces of gossip that are part of our, like, if you were a comedian, they'd be part of your tight five. Like, this is what you work on, right? You go home, you workshop this, you know exactly how to tell it. Do you have pieces of gossip like that you know that, along the conversation, it's time for you to break out the story about the time XYZ and you know how to tell it?
I do. I 100% do. They're usually mostly about me. Like, I'm honestly mostly about dates that I've been on.
Yeah.
But I definitely have stories where I'm like, this is my tight five. This is how it's going to end. This is like, I'm going to bring out this text message that I still have a screenshot of. Even as I'm usually telling a story for the first time, I'm self-editing for the next time I tell it, where I'm like, oh, I'm going to cut that, or I'm going to add that in.
Right. I need to introduce that earlier.
Exactly. It's like, oh, that didn't hit as big as it. Like, there were a lot of follow-up questions, so let me make sure I like upload that.
Right. Totally. I love it. And then there's a question we have about empathy in gossip, right? That we're talking about other people's stories. And yet, on the one hand, you can be like, this person sucks. They're so-and-so. I can't believe they're so trashy. This type of messy shit they be into. But then on the other hand, you sort of want to be like, listen, who am I to judge? Everybody out here trying, like, people are all trying their best. Like, nobody's perfect. How do you sort of strike that balance when you're talking about someone's shortcomings or failures, or even discussing what may be their worst moment that they've ever had, and they're telling that story to everyone who will listen? How do you keep empathy, like, at least in the framework, or is that even a concern?
I definitely think that's a concern. I would say context is probably the most important thing in this situation. I find that most people do things that make perfect sense within the context of their lives. Even if it's not a choice I would make, I can usually get to a point of, if I was you and I had the same resources that you had, I could see how I would make that decision. And so I actually think that makes gossip better. I think the best part of gossip is actually the kind of psychoanalyzing bit of it, where it's like, oh, like, maybe this could have worked, or maybe this could have worked, or maybe they should have done that, or maybe like that would have been better. And I think about this with Normal Gossip a lot when I'm writing stories. I don't ever really want an easy villain. I want people to be able to understand why someone did something, even if they don't condone it.
Have you ever had someone get mad at you for sharing a piece of gossip? Has it ever gotten back to you that it came from you?
I've had my mom get mad at me for sharing a piece of gossip.
Yeah, there it is. Yes, it's always the parents of the writers. They're like, why would you say that publicly? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. My parents also are always telling me, they're like, Rachel can't hold water. Like, don't tell her anything. And they tell me everything anyway.
Yeah, right. Because they're gossip. See, this is what people don't understand.
And so I think I just learned that if my mom told me something about one of her colleagues or one of her friends, just to like not repeat it in front of the person. I think that's the main
right.
thing, is to pretend that you have not heard this information in front of the person unless they say it to you.
What security precautions do you take?
Yes. I love that question. Actually, you will often hear me saying operational security. I'm all about OPSEC. Like, you have to keep shit secure. So I think if you're gossiping in your normal life, look around. Just look around. You never know. I live in New York. You never know.
Right. Oh my God. Yes. Well, I live in Oakland, where it's even worse. This just happened the other night. We were talking, and the conversation turned to a certain person, and everyone at the table just did like a quick scan of the restaurant to make sure like them or their friend or their cousin or their sister wasn't in the room with us. Exactly.
Yeah. Keep your eyes peeled. I think that I always err on the side of sharing gossip in ways that are time locked. So I will send a voice memo or I will do a phone call. I rarely ever text gossip. I rarely ever do anything written down because unless it's an absolute emergency. Yeah, no receipts. No receipts unless it's an absolute emergency or it's in a group chat that I trust with my life.
Yeah.
So I would just operate always with the thought that the person you're talking about might get a hold of it and try to avoid that by not leaving anything. Think of it like being in a national park. Don't leave anything behind.
Pack it in, take it out.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. I've had the experience of someone who I actually kind of wish that they shared a little less. Like, I wish that they, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wish that you did a little less gossip. I don't need to know about everybody in the office and what they did and who they had sex with. But like, how do we gently extricate ourselves from that? Like, that's a really great story, but I'm just going to go ahead and get back to these emails right quick.
Unfortunately, you have picked the wrong person to ask because I am
person.
so bad at extricating myself from conversations. Like, I'm the person who's still talking to the waitress when they need to move on. Like, I'm like, oh, you do. So I'm not good at that. But I would say having less of an active listening phase. I think stonewalling is probably one of the easiest ways to signal to people that you're kind of done. I think it's more of a physical posture and giving one-word answers. I think if you think of the ways that you have been communicated to that someone's done talking with you, just do that.
Okay. All right. Mental note. After your third, that's crazy.
Exactly. And if they don't pick up on that, I think you can always say, I have to go to the bathroom. No one's ever going to say, no, you don't.
That's really good. That's a good out. I'm going to start using that.
Yeah.
A question that I have to ask that we're going to end on is, do you today, this morning, are you holding any juicy pieces of gossip?
Ooh, let me think about that for a minute. I'm like circling through of like what I can anonymize quickly.
Yeah.
So I was recently visiting a friend and her brother is like in his late 20s and just like very attractive as one is. And so I just am like, I'm always interested in hearing about men's dating lives, especially when they're actually being honest with you, which rarely happens. And so we were going to like a beach and one of his friends was coming with us. And I was just like, okay, cool. Who is this woman? Later, we find out this woman basically invited herself to visit. She's in her early 30s. My friend's little brother is in his mid-20s, which is always an interesting proposition to me. And I was just like, inviting herself. That's an option. Hanging out with his family.
Right.
That's certainly an option. Hanging out with his sister's best friend who's randomly here for the weekend. Also certainly an option. And he's like coming to us and he's like, oh, like, I don't know if I should go see her in a month because, you know, she bought tickets to like a Tory Lanez concert to go together. And I was just like,
choices are being made all the way around.
Every single one of these choices, I was just like, far be it from me to judge another woman. But I was like, go with God. It's hard dating out here in these streets. But if you ever catch me not only flying to see a man, but flying to see a man and invite him to a Tory Lanez concert.
To a Tory Lanez concert.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
So that is the gossip that I have.
I love it. That hits all the points. We establish a shared point of view, you and I, in that moment. We then tighten our community bond because we have the same point of view on these things. And we reify our values as opposed to some of the wildness that's out there. This is great.
It is. It's perfect. This
has been so great. I love talking about gossip with you. I love talking with you in general. And I'm so excited that we got to spend this time together.
I had such a great time. Thank you for having me.
Again, that was Rachel Hampton, host of Normal Gossip. It's a wonderful show, so I encourage you to check it out. And this conversation concludes How To's miniseries on embracing your inner antihero. For now, we've talked about gossip and revenge and even being an ethical hater. And now it's your turn. Are you trying to make a change by becoming less than perfect? If so, we want to hear about the antihero that you want to become. Send us a note at howto@slate.com or leave us a voicemail at 646-495-4001 and we might have you on the show. By the way, you can remain anonymous. And as always, please feel free to share this episode with your friends and be sure to rate and review us because that helps us help more people. How To is produced by Rosemary Belson with Kevin Bendis. Joel Meyer is our supervising producer. Special thanks to Sophie Summergrad for production on this episode and our entire Anti-Hero series. Merritt Jacob is senior technical director and composed our theme music. Charles Duhigg created the show. Courtney Martin is my co-host. Oh, and if you're wondering what that juicy piece of gossip is that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, maybe, just maybe, one day, I'll tell you. I'm Carl Wallace. Thanks for listening.